We are back for another waiver wire video, and if you're watching this video right now, it means you're still in the playoff hunt, you've made playoffs, are getting ready to dominate your competition next week or the week after, or you're just a good guy who always finishes what they started, and you're going to battle it out to the very last matchup. Playoffs or not. If you guys like this video, remember to smash that subscribe button, give it a thumbs up. If you hate this video, smash that dislike. Tell me what you hated about it. It's all good, won't hurt my feelings. I'm getting super excited for basketball season to start. We only really got three more weeks left of fantasy baseball. Then we're going to take probably a little break and roll into basketball. So I hope a lot of you stick around. Hope a lot of you stick with me through that next fantasy basketball season. And for those of you new here, I'm Chris. Welcome to Number 2 Sports. And here comes Brian 6682's favorite part of all my videos, Wiffle Ball Mania. First up, we have an exciting young prospect who debuted for the Mets earlier this week and dominated against my Mariners. That's Nolan McLean, starting pitcher. So yes, Nolan went 5.1 innings with 8 strikeouts, 11 whiffs, and a 30% CSW against my Seattle Mariners, who are just in a funk right now. But I'm not going to use that to discredit McLean's start because he did look fantastic. McLean was drafted in the 3rd round in 2023, was a 3-star quarterback recruit from North Carolina to Oklahoma State. So he was a 2-sport guy, baseball and football, but he eventually ditched football and pursued baseball full time, and it's obviously paid off for him. Even still with baseball, he had the nickname Cowboy Ohtani because of his ability to perform as a hitter and pitcher at the collegiate level. McLean is an absolute dog and just a pure sign of how much of a freak of an athlete he is, being able to be a recruit to both football and baseball. It just shows off his pure athleticism, be able to adapt to anything and work and perfect any level of his game. McLean's arsenal consists of a sweeper, sinker, 4-seamer, cutter, curve, and changeup. Now, he is a high spin rate guy, like an over 3,000 RPM spin rate guy. His sweeper averaged 2,995 RPMs, which for reference, only 3 MLB starters featured a higher average sweeper spin rate this season. His curveball is even better at 3,200, which would be at the top of the league. The more spin on a pitch will induce more horizontal break, making it harder for hitters to pick up, track, and anticipate its final location. The curveball is especially special. It has glove side movement, so right to left, throws it around 80 miles per hour, where most pitchers would be 3 to 4 ticks less with that kind of movement, and he dominates with it against left-handed hitters. The 2-plane break of 14 to 17 inches, so both sweep and drop, is incredible. And if he locates it perfectly down and inside to lefties, they can look absolutely foolish trying to make contact with this thing. And that's just the curveball. The sweeper, again, has a ton of horizontal movement and break, making it an absolute weapon against both lefties and righties. Fun fact, a bunch of baseball guys point out, his sweeper and curveball almost have the identical spin direction and horizontal movement, so it's extremely difficult for hitters to pick up out of his hand and identify which pitch is coming. So combine McLean's sweeper and curveball, and it's almost unfair. Most pitchers would just wish to be able to spin the ball like one of his breaking pitches, not the ability to have both. And yeah, I guess onto the boring stuff. The 4-seamer and sinker play well, hovering around 94, 95 miles per hour. And if he can consistently locate that 4-seamer upstairs, this is a nice surprise offering to hitters who are looking out for all that spin on the curveball and sweeper. He doesn't have great extension or fastball shape. He only has 13.1 inches of vert, but it's a speed and eye level change for hitters, and it is a legitimate pitch. The cutter and changeup were used pretty sparingly, so it's kind of hard to tell how they're going to play at the MLB level, but it's nice that he has them in his bag when he's going to need to use them. The biggest issue, like I mentioned last week, is McLean's control. He had 4 walks against the Mariners, got out of a ridiculous bases loaded jam with this amazing play. Again, just showing off that pure athleticism that he has. And also, you have to wonder if the Mets are going to limit or manage his innings to close out the year. This is McLean's first full year as a starting pitcher in his entire life, which is just bonkers. Just shows you how much legitimate potential this kid has. I can't wait to draft him next year, and I'm pretty hopeful on his ability to produce for fantasy managers down the stretch and into the playoffs. I'm recording as he's pitching this tonight. Waldrop was in the exact same situation last week and didn't let me down. We'll see how things go tonight, obviously, but it looks like McLean's going to be a must-add guy for 12-team leagues right now. Next up, we're going to go with the pitcher who's making his way back from Tommy John surgery and scheduled to make his season debut next week against the Boston Red Sox, and that's Kyle Bradish from the Baltimore Orioles. So we have talked about Bradish a couple times as a stash, as he's making way back from Tommy John procedure with the internal brace procedure on top of that. And he looks like he's poised to finally make his season debut against the Sox next week. And I'm stoked for it. Bradish was phenomenal in 2023, pitching 168 innings with 168 strikeouts and a sparkling 2.83 ERA. He followed that up and more in 2024 while also adding some velocity, which clearly helped him. He bumped his strikeouts to 53 in 39.1 innings and still maintained a 2.75 ERA. He looked destined for a massive breakout last year, but after only 8 starts, he got scheduled for Tommy John and has been working his way back ever since. So what can we expect from Bradish to close out the year? His arsenal consists of a 4-seamer, slider, curveball, and sinker. His fastball hovers around 95 miles per hour, not the best extension or vert, but if he can locate it upstairs, it plays well. He has a nice long looping curveball that he can use to attack lefties and a devastating slider to go after righties. Bradish made 6 rehab starts, pitched 21 innings with a 4.67 ERA and 25 strikeouts. He was up to 89 pitches in his final rehab start, so it looks like he's fully stretched out and ready to go next week. We've seen how good of a pitcher he is and can be in the past. What I'm curious to see is how his command's going to be after the internal brace procedure this year. We have seen pitchers struggle with the control after Tommy John in their first year back. And also probably even a bigger question is how much of a leash are the Orioles going to let him have to close out the year? How much are they really going to baby him because they're not making the playoffs? And they want their guy to be fully healthy, ready to go for 2026. Even with those question marks, regardless of how big you think they are, he should be way more rostered than he is because he does have a bunch of favorable matchups to close out the year. He's a high upside strikeout arm who should be a plus in the ratio department. His velocity still looks to be at 2024 levels, which is great. In my mind, he's a guy to grab in 12-team leagues to see how he looks when he comes out because there is a lot of potential in that arm of his. Next up, we have another exciting young prospect who we've talked about a couple times, who made his debut earlier this week after that August 15 deadline, and that's Samuel Basallo off the Baltimore Orioles. So I feel like that's all we've been doing this last few weeks is just talking about prospects getting called up, but I don't think any are comparable or any are on the level that Basallo is and the potential that he could have to close out the year. He's on like another level for prospect ranking because he's just completely dominated AAA as a 20-year-old catcher. His prospect savant page is just glorious, gets me all tingly inside, and it just shows the elite potential, elite upside in that bat of his. And not just for now, for years and years to come. And the Orioles, I guess, realized that because they just signed him this morning to an 8-year, $67 million deal. And I know some people will always say, oh, he's selling him short. Why didn't he wait? He's leaving money on the table. But you have to remember, this guy's now 21 years old. He's played, under 10 games in the MLB. He's just getting offered $67 million of guaranteed cash that he could retire his parents for. He could be set up for life. And it's just immediately life-changing money for that young man and his family. Nothing at all is guaranteed or given in this league. So I don't fault these guys. I don't blame these young kids for taking that guaranteed money when it's offered to them, taking that fat bag, securing their future, even if they are leaving some potential cash on the table if they would have held out 1 to 2 years. It's honestly just a great deal for both parties. But I would say especially for Baltimore, because if he pans out, his hitting tools are one of one, and he could be a menace in this league for years to come. But speaking of that hit tool, he can demolish baseballs at the top of the zone, he can barrel baseballs in the bottom of the zone, and really he can just flat out hit what we call pitcher's pitches, so bad pitches, with absolute raw, disgusting power. The ability to drive pitches that are out of the zone is a gift, and just one of the many things that makes him special. Basallo's bat speed at 76.6 miles per hour is already in the 99th percentile of the entire league. He had a max exit velocity of 115 miles per hour, 21% barrel rate, and a 57.4 hard hit percentage. Just disgusting stuff. Basallo has great plate discipline and the ability to make consistent contact as well, just fully rounding out all of his hitting tools. He started out his major league career 4 for 14 with 5 RBI. But let's not forget he got robbed of a home run in his first game by Jesus Sanchez. So this line should be even better. With catcher eligibility, he should not be floating around on any 12-team league's wires right now. Basayo has legitimate upside and is a must-grab guy if he takes the league by storm. If he hits the ground running, he has a lot more potential, lot more upside than other promising young catchers like Drake Baldwin and Agustin Ramirez. Go get this man. Okay, now we're going to go over 5 players who I think could have legitimate league-winning potential and upside. So you just want to double-check your wires to see if they're available. Now, these players don't come without risk, but I just think they have enough juice in the tank to really juice your teams across the finish line. First up, Navole Marte. The guy is smashing. You can stick him in the outfield now. He has outfield eligibility. You can put him at a corner infield spot. He's moved up to second in the Cincinnati Reds lineup recently. Former top prospect that hit a huge bump in the road when he got busted for roids. But really, he's bounced back and he's playing such good ball right now. Counting that good home park in the summer months, I think he has the potential to go on a nice heater to close out the year. As a former Seattle Mariner, I'm honestly happy for the kid. I hope he keeps this hot streak going, and I hope he makes a name for himself in the MLB. Next up, we have Cam Schlittler. And honestly, all you need to do is look at his last game. He had a perfect game big going into the 7th inning. Like, that is no easy task. That is incredible. I have talked about him lots this year, and I'm definitely going to be heavily invested in him as a pitcher next year as well. I love a lot about his game, and he has a great 2-start week next week if it's your first round of your playoffs against the White Sox and Nationals. Sign me up. Next up, we have Brenton Doyle. And I always say every year there's some random Colorado Rocky guy that just carries a bunch of teams to fantasy baseball championships. And it was Doyle last year. He was really productive. He was on a lot of championship winning teams. And is he going to do it again this year? He's really started to turn around after a terrible 2/3 of the season. Colorado has 3 home games next week, and then the following week is a home stretch of 6 games for most people's first round of the playoffs, or maybe it's your second round. Doyle can get hot in a second, especially at home. It's obviously risky, but there's just so much upside with Doyle at home that I find it hard not to chase it. But that's just me. Dylan Cruz is another guy that we've talked about lots, and the Nationals have one of the most favorable hitter schedules down the stretch to close out the year, and this guy is a legitimate power and speed threat. Some of these young guys really do take off to close out the year, and I like his batting profile, I like his batting tools to be able to do that, be productive, and be on a lot of championship winning teams close off this fantasy baseball season. I would like to remind everybody we are shooting for upside here. All these players do carry some level of risk. It all just depends how risk averse you are. And last up, Zebby Matthews. He has a great schedule coming up against a bunch of bad opponents. We all know his strikeout upside. The question is here, and the big question is, can he command it well enough to go deep enough into games to grab W's and grab quality starts while also keeping that ball in the ballpark? I love his upside. I love his potential. It's risky. It's juicy. I like it. Let me know if you guys think I'm tripping about these guys. I was trying to find players that would probably be available in a decent amount of leagues. So definitely limited the player pool. But I do think these 5 guys do have a ton of upside. And I would be chasing them in 12-man league. Okay, now it's time for the recap segment. We're going to go over my waiver video posted on August 9th. I'm going to fly through this. We're going to quickly go over the players, see if there's a punishment or not. So buckle up. First up, we got Sammy Sosa, and the guy's been an absolute stud over the last 2 weeks. He's won 1153 with 4 home runs and 10 RBI. The OBP is kind of gross, but we'll take that power and RBI all day long. Next up, we have Jakob Marcy, and holy, what an absolute run this guy has been on to start his major league career. Who could have predicted this? 16 for 48 with 3 home runs, 16 RBI, and 6 steals. He's ranked 5th in the last 14 days. Is he just going to be one of those random league winners that we see every year? We'll keep going with Cade Horton, and this was actually kind of a fade, or a make sure your bids aren't too high, or don't blow waiver priority or drop anyone with at least a decent amount of value. Now this might have been probably a little L of a take because he pitched really well against Toronto. He ran into a blister issue in his last outing though, and he did look a little bit shaky. He's probably going to go in the IL 15, which saves me for this take, I think. Next up, we had Warming Burnable, who again was another fade by me. He went through a cold stretch like I thought he would, kind of giving you empty hits right now. I think the start to his MLB career was definitely on like the high end of his potential ceiling and just is not realistic of what we can expect him to have to close out the year. I'm giving myself a W for this one, or as Jameis Winston likes to say, eat a W. Next up, we had Ryan Mountcastle, and a couple people didn't like this pick, said he was old, said he would suck, but he's actually being decent. He's went 12 for 39 with 2 home runs, 5 RBI, and 2 swipes, with a 350 OBP. Good for a 139 rank in the last 14 days. I definitely prefer him over like Warming any day of the week. Honestly, he's not a bad corner infield guy for deeper 12-man leagues. Next up, we had Victor Robles to stash, and I had talked about how he keeps getting beamed in AAA. Well, it kept happening, and you could say Victor sort of lost his temper just a little bit. Just take a look at this clip here, and you can make the judgment for yourself. So yeah, definitely not a good look, but I guess there was a little bit of a backstory to it. I guess that pitcher has hit Robles so much throughout their careers, and again, not justified to chuck a bat at somebody, but he's trying to work himself back into the major league roster, into the major league level, and getting hit like that constantly, it might not be malicious or not, it's going to piss you off, but again, you can't be chucking bats at people. He's going to get a 10-game suspension once he gets called up, and the Mariners are going to have to play a man down for those 10 games. So there's just not going to be enough time once he serves that suspension, once he gets called up, to be useful for fantasy. Maybe like in championship round, but again, you're not going to be risking everything for a guy that hasn't played all year. Daryl Hernandez was the bonus player, and I don't know why it just reminded me of like Heinz Mustard. That's that last name. It looked like that. Maybe I'm tripping, but does anyone else think that too? But hey, he's making some contact. Alabama coming pretty empty-handed. Not much counting stats here. Not a terrible start to his big league career, but we don't want this guy for 12 league teams, obviously. He was just a bonus segment, just a guy to keep your eye on, guy to watch in those really deep leagues. So not usable for a shallower 12 league teams or under. So I'm just going to wipe this take under the rug, you know? Okay, so to quickly recap here, we're going Sammy Sosa good. Jakob Marseille good. Cade Horton fade take was probably an L. I'll take an L for that, even though he is going on the IL. So that kind of is good, but we can't predict injuries here. We're not going to get into that. Warming Burnable as a fade. I think that was good. I'm going to take a W for that. Ryan Mountcastle, I think he's decent. I don't think he's bad as some of you think he said. So I'm going to say that it's even, not a W, not an L. I'm going even there. And then Robles and Hernandez aren't in the main waiver segment. They're a stash and a bonus, so we're not going to count that into our calculations. No booth review needed, though. Honestly, this was clear, cut, and dry. No punishment. Okay, now for the people that are in their first week of playoffs or going into the playoffs, I'm just going to go over some playoff advice that's mostly categorized for head-to-head leagues, but it is useful across all formats. Also, don't mind me here if I'm not directly looking into the camera, not directly looking into you guys' beautiful eyes, each and every word. I have some notes written out, and I just don't feel like memorizing the entire thing, so I'm going to be glancing back and forth. So it's just something different if anybody picks up on it. One of the first things you want to do is look for 2-start pitchers with favorable matchups during any one of your playoff weeks to help potentially bump your Ks, wins, and quality starts. Like seriously, you probably should have done this a couple weeks ago. And similar to that, plan ahead your streamers. See who they're going to be pitching in that 1 to 3 week window where you're going to be using them during playoffs. Feel free to not hold on to them and pick up guys that are going to go against the weaker teams. So like Chicago, Washington, Pittsburgh, and obviously the Rockies. Also, if you do get to the finals or if you're in the playoff matchups where it's win or go home, don't be afraid to drop a pitcher who's pitched on Wednesday for someone else who's going to help your lineup throughout the end of the week. Because again, Wednesday, Thursday pitchers forward aren't going to pitch for you again that week. They're not going to be usable. The only thing is here, we don't want to drop any studs in case you do win that matchup and you'll need them. These are borderline roster guys or people that you won't kick yourselves for dropping if you win that week. Also, just try to have as many Thursday players as possible. The more amount of games that you get played on Thursday, since it's the least amount of games for MLB each and every week, is best. It'll increase your man games, increase your counting stats, and the same thing applies to when you're setting your lineup for teams that are going to play 7 games compared to a team that's only going to play 5 games. We want to maximize our at-bats as much as possible. Know your league and league settings. So when you can add guys, when do lineups get locked? If you have someone IL right now on your bench, is he going to come back in time to be useful for the playoffs? Like you're not going to hold this guy burning up a spot if he's only going to come back for like 3 or 4 games, potentially in championship week. And like how useful is that player really going to be? The league is now only 3 weeks long, so make moves accordingly. Also, similar to that, you got to act fast. If a guy goes day to day, depending on who it is, try and find someone who can bump up your man games by 2 games that week. I know sitting around waiting, hopefully they say, oh, he's only going to miss 1 game, then he misses 2 games, then he misses 3 games. And then now you've just missed so many at-bats when you could have got someone in your lineup who's going to be productive and help you in runs, hits, swipes, home runs, whatever. You also want to ride hot bats here. There's no sense holding on to someone in a prolonged slump, waiting for them to get out. Season's 3 weeks long now. If that guy's in a crazy slump and he's not being useful, get him out of here. Also, if you're clear to win your matchup by Saturday, Sunday, look ahead. Be proactive with your moves if you have any remaining to get a jump on the next matchup. But remember, only if it's clear cut, because the current matchup going on is the only one that matters. You lose, you're done. Who cares that you grabbed a pitcher that starts 2 times next week? And then vice versa, if you're losing your matchup, attack the swing categories Friday through Sunday. So add a steal specialist if you're behind in swipes. If you're behind in Ks, you're going to have to stream some risky pitchers that you probably wouldn't have before. Or maybe grab an RP that's in a committee that might fluke himself into a save one night. Don't bother adding guys that specialize in categories or that mostly contribute in categories that you're already winning or just way too far behind to catch up in a 3-day sample. And finally, just know your opponent and who you're going up against. If your opponent is just dominating home runs and RBI all season long and you have no chance against them in those categories, just punt it. Don't bother trying to beat them. Don't bother playing catch up. Make sure you win those other categories to get that W. We're not chasing balance anymore. Do what you need to do to win and use your moves accordingly. And then also similar to if you're behind in categories Friday to Sunday, protect your ratios if you are up. Sometimes it's just better to stop streaming over the weekend, protect that ERA, protect that whip once you have a strong base. I always say load up early, volume early, and protect late. And then if you are streaming for certain categories, kind of like how I just talked about, so for like guys for runs, you obviously want someone at the top of the order, higher chance of getting batted in each and every night. For RBIs, home runs, ride hot streaks. Ride guys that have big power that can go through these huge power bursts. Pick them up, put them in your lineup, hope they keep it going, hope they bust 1 or 2 over the fence. Or teams that are playing in Coors, because again, Coors gives up the most home runs in the summer. You can pick up pretty much guys that aren't even known for their crazy power and have a decent chance of hitting one out. Stolen bases, obviously you can just look for a specialist who might kill you in other categories, but if you're already punting that or already have a huge lead, you can try and find a steal specialist to give you a bump there. Average and OBP, you want to bench your heavy K percentage guys if they're going up against aces especially. This is where we want to look for like our slap hitters, contact hitters, the Chandler Simpsons of the world. Wins and quality starts are pretty self-explanatory. You want a pitcher facing crappy teams in a good pitcher's park on a solid team. Again, 2-start pitchers are a huge edge in fantasy playoffs. Just gives you that extra game for extra counting stats, extra wins, extra quality start. Ks, again, pretty self-explanatory. You're going to want to target those high upside strikeout guys that could maybe be a little bit risky in the ratio situation. Saves, again, target some guys that are in committees and hopefully they'll fluke out into a save situation on one of the weekend nights. Hopefully that helped. I know it kind of just rambled all over the place through there, going left, right, and center with all my thoughts, but I just kind of want to spew it out, get it out to you for guys that are in playoffs this week or next week so you can start planning ahead and getting yourself and your team ready to take home a championship. Okay, I know it was a shorter waiver wire section this week with only 3 players, but we're so close to crunch time with people starting playoffs potentially next week on Monday. I don't want to be recommending guys unless I'm pretty sure that they're going to be solid and be able to be put into lineups on playoff teams. Now it's not the time to be messing with our starting lineup, adding these random guys off the waiver wire. We want to start our studs, start the guys that got us here, ride those hot bats, and do everything that we can to put our team in the best position possible to bring home that championship. If you guys like this video, make sure to subscribe, give it a thumbs up. I'm stoked for fantasy basketball. Let me know if you guys are too. I hope you guys stick around for that. I was thinking about maybe throwing some leagues together as we get closer to basketball season, but I'll keep you guys updated. Thanks for watching. Have a good weekend. Have a good week, and I'll see you guys next time.